I think that historically, there was always Massa always desired us, so we would not have the miscegenation that we have. It was not, so we were always desirable to them, rather than whatever they want to say, whatever lies or however they want to flip the truth or actual fact. I still know there was someone that was very powerful in the industry that happened to be Caucasian that was attracted to me. And I remember telling him, you're still the oppressor,
Dang.
you know?
The legendary actress and comedian Phyllis Stickney was in the video giving such a very true, accurate account of Black women dealing with the invasive as well as obsession of the white male in pursuit of the Black woman. I wanted to talk about an experience that I had as a Black woman, but it went on a whole other level because this experience that I had was with a Caucasian or white male, and he was offering some coffee to me. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But he was intrigued by me because I'm Black, because I'm a woman, and also because I'm a lesbian. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight, just a little bit, because it's really not enough time to reveal and explain what Black women have been through. We have been through more than you can imagine. And what I understand as a Black lesbian woman is that the obsession and the fascination with the Black woman has always existed from all men, and especially from the white man. I have titled my video message, "White Male Begged Lesbian Black Woman to Enslave Him." I am Giselle Wallace, lesbian life coach and author, and I provide my lesbian perspective here on my YouTube channel. If that interests you, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. White male begged lesbian Black woman to enslave him. This is actually a true story about myself and what I experienced with a white male. And it was actually online. It was a few years ago. I was on Twitter. It was actually Twitter before it became X. And there was an interview that I posted. It was like one of my first interviews I had by a lady. It was a Black woman who interviewed me on YouTube. And I had posted that video interview as a pinned post on my Twitter profile. You know how when you go to people's profile pages on Twitter and they will pin either a post or a video. So it was an interview and I had it pinned and it had a lot of retweets, a lot of views. People really enjoyed that video, that interview. And you know how you get a notification when somebody replies to your post. So somebody replied to my pinned video interview post. And normally you're thinking, maybe someone is just responding to listening to the interview and they like it, or maybe they hate it. But in this situation, it was a little bit different. It was a very lengthy post. And so I read the post, and to summarize what I read, it was a man who let me know he was a Caucasian man, aka a white male, and he was fascinated with me. He let me know how he was drawn to me and how he wanted to offer me some coffee. And I was immediately alarmed already because for one, I don't know who you are and you're offering me coffee. Do you think that was him offering a date? Well, maybe it was. Maybe it was a virtual date. I don't know. Maybe he was going to send me a virtual coffee because, we're online. This is social media. But he kept mentioning every once in a while about offering me some coffee. So I couldn't help but notice that he kept asking to give me coffee. So I'm like, why is he offering me coffee? But as I kept reading the message, he was saying that he loves to be enslaved. And he said he does allow white women to enslave him. And enslave means that you are forced into slavery, or that you are taken into captivity, and or that you are bound as a slave to someone else who owns you as property. Now, this is not at all a dig at what Black people endured. The various torments that Black people endured during slavery. This is not a dig from me at all. And I absolutely do not condone discrimination, racism, or slavery to anyone. And I do not undermine or disrespect what my Black ancestors went through as slaves. I honor Black history. I honor those who came before me and paved the way for us. I respect, I adore, I honor, and I will always show my appreciation for Black people who represented the Black race in the highest regard. So when I'm reading this message, now this is on social media, it's public, people can see it. And I'm reading this message from this white male who is asking me, a Black lesbian woman, to enslave him. I had so many emotions running through my mind, and I was very angry. And I started to delete the message right away, but something told me not to delete the message, at least not yet. I had read through the message, and this white male said, "Sometimes I allow white women to enslave me, but I prefer that a black woman enslaves me." And he said, "May you please do me a big favor. I will have the uttermost satisfaction to be enslaved by you because you are a black lesbian woman." End quote. That's what he asked me. Now, he did proceed to offer coffee to me again. And he said, "I will give you coffee in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, you black lesbian goddess." And at this point, I went to his profile page, and I was not prepared for what I saw. He had quite a bit of followers. And I found out that he owned his own coffee shop. So this white Caucasian male owned his own coffee shop. So he was a business owner. Not surprised, white men have always owned businesses, but it made sense all of a sudden why he kept offering me coffee, because he owns a coffee shop. Well, I don't like coffee, and I don't take drinks from strangers. But as I'm scrolling his profile page, I see all kinds of photos and even videos of this white male in chains, and he was being whipped. There was all of these different ways of him being punished. And I was really just speechless, because I was, for one, wondering, how is this allowed on Twitter? And it wasn't a private page, it was public. But Twitter allows anything. And now that it's X, it's still allowing anything. Like, you can go on Twitter and it will show you some things that you want to ban and bar your children from. And even adults shouldn't have to witness this. But since this white male intrusively came onto my profile page on Twitter and deliberately made a post under my pinned post of my interview, I took notice. And I also took offense, because let me just explain to you the video interview that was pinned on my profile on Twitter. It was one of the first interviews I have made, and I was discussing my history as a black lesbian woman, how I went through a lot of oppressive and discriminatory experiences growing up on up into adulthood. And I explained how my profession as a life coach allows me to be able to teach and coach other people who do not have a voice, or who do not have a safe space to speak with people who are able to understand them and relate to them, as well as give them hope and guidance. So I was explaining in that interview about my experiences as a black lesbian woman, and how my profession is very dear to me as a life coach. So for someone to reply under my interview pinned post such a barbaric post of asking me to be his master because he wanted to be enslaved by a black woman, but with emphasis, he wanted to be enslaved by a black lesbian woman because it would give him utter satisfaction. It was disgusting. Now, I did look at his profile, and he did have actually videos and images of white women who were enslaving him. So, and he's a white man. So I'm like, this is very weird because, see, they're showing you the depravity of their mindset. Because, see, their ancestors, the Caucasian people who enslaved a black nation, what they did was brutal and indescribable pain and torment that black people had to endure for not a day, not a week, not a month, not a year, for over 400 years. And do you think that once slavery was abolished, that suddenly everything was paradise? Absolutely not. If you go through 400 years of slavery, the residue impacts the generations after. Because just because slavery was abolished does not mean that racism ended. It took almost another 100 years after slavery was abolished, because slavery was abolished in 1865. It took almost another 100 years for us to have civil rights in the country of America. Another 100 years. So you might as well say it was 500 years of slavery. And then we had to work on seeing if we could end segregation, going through the Jim Crow era. This was the 1960s. That wasn't too long ago. It wasn't even 100 years ago. Not even another 100 years ago. And people are treating slavery as if it's a joke. So looking at his profile and seeing this white man so-called be enslaved by white women, it let me know that they didn't really process the damage that they caused to black people. Because, see, they can act it out. They can pretend like, oh, well, I want to go through slavery. So whip me, put me in a chain. Do you know how asinine this is? To play out publicly on social media that you as a white man are being enslaved. And let me tell you something else that was highly offensive, highly inappropriate, extremely disrespectful to myself as a black lesbian woman, and anyone who was and is following me on my social media account. This white male intrusively posting this long, detailed message begging to be enslaved by a black lesbian woman. He will never know what slavery is. And he completely twisted what slavery entails. Black people never asked or begged to be slaves. They were raped. They were kidnapped. They were stolen. They were beaten, robbed, stripped of their identity, stripped of their clothing, stripped of their families. They were forced to build a nation that they didn't come from their bare hands. And yet this white Caucasian male asked me, a black lesbian woman, as if I'm stupid, as if I don't know my history, my black history. He said, "Pardon me, will you give me the utter satisfaction of enslaving me because you are a black lesbian woman?" So he begged to be enslaved. This white male doesn't know what he's asking for. And he's ludicrous because you are a white male who owns your own coffee shop. Black people couldn't own anything when they were slaves. So how are you depicting on your page of you being enslaved, but you own a coffee shop? And you have the website linked to your coffee shop in your profile bio. So that means that you're running a business and you're earning income. But yet you want to be enslaved by black women. And now your ultimate satisfaction would be to be enslaved by a black lesbian woman. The utter disrespect, because this obsession that white males have for black women is not new. Some people say now they fetish black women. Well, whether it's an obsession, a fetish, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it, they are now wanting lesbian black women too. But that's always been as well. That's always been. It's just not talked about. But that's why he wanted to come to my profile page, and he did, begging me, a black lesbian woman, to enslave him, a white male. Well, he has it twisted because he knows his oppressors and how they operate and how they think. And maybe he believes that the way that he can receive forgiveness is by going to the black woman and asking the black woman to pay evil for evil. In other words, he knows as a white male that his people were oppressors to black people, to black women. What did we go through? Too much. And so in his sick, twisted mind, he can be pardoned by the black woman and even by the black lesbian woman by begging her to punish him through what he calls being a slave. But see, we didn't do evil for evil as black people. Because if we did evil for evil, this world would be turned upside down. Believe me. Because black people are extremely powerful. And the world knows this. Do you really think that a black woman enslaving a white male is going to pardon over 400 years of slavery? I'll let you answer that question on your own. Now, I will say that when I was on his page, I did not see one black woman doing evil for evil. He actually had images and videos either by himself being chained up, or it was white women who had him in chains or in these very humiliating positions. One of the images was of him in some jock strap and he was blindfolded and he was in chains where he couldn't use his hands or his feet. And it showed this white woman with a broomstick and she would beat his private area over and over again. And it was just really perverted. And I was very glad to see that there were no images of actual black women playing out this sick, twisted role that this white male had in his mind, that he wanted to actually experience with a black woman. He had not one video, not one image of a black woman doing what he requested. But yet, he said that he would receive utter satisfaction if a black lesbian woman would enslave him. He asked me to enslave him. But yet he owns a coffee shop and he's offering me coffee 3 times a day. Well, I'm so glad that I didn't see any black women stooping to his level. And I absolutely, of course, was not interested. Because how can you ask a black woman to do this utter nonsense, but then you go to a black lesbian woman? Because this also lets me know that you are completely oblivious to, or in denial, or in utter disrespect of lesbian women. Lesbians do not have any interest in men. And the way you were portraying yourself in your photos and your images with the white woman as a white man, you wanted some type of sexual favor. You wanted some type of involvement with the woman after getting beaten. It was sick, y'all. It was sick. I couldn't believe it was like it was on Twitter, like a public profile page. He had like hundreds and hundreds of followers, like looking at this mess. And it was terrible. So I immediately knew that in his twisted mind, he wanted to be enslaved, but he also wanted to sleep with a black lesbian woman, which lets me know he doesn't respect or acknowledge a black lesbian woman for who she is. Because if you did, you wouldn't have come to my page like that. So what did I do? After looking at his profile and realizing that there are people who really need mental health treatment, but they may never pursue it. Well, I deleted his post off of my profile page under my pinned interview. And then I went to his page again and I reported his page and I blocked him. But that wasn't enough. I hope that his page has been reported to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. But I just want to say, if you are a white male, don't ever do what he did to another black woman. And don't ever do it to a black lesbian woman either, because it's not funny. It's not interesting. It's abusive. But since you have been ingrained for centuries to act out in a very abrasive manner, you are not going to be able to think about how another person feels, because everything has always been about you and what you desired. But your desires are not what other people desire. And this white male begging me, a black lesbian woman, to enslave him, to give him the uttermost satisfaction, lets you know how selfish and wicked and twisted his mindset is. Because see, he wanted utter satisfaction, but he didn't think about how I would feel reading his post, or how degrading and humiliating it would be for me to be forced into this wicked behavior of doing evil for evil by coercing me with a cup of coffee, reminding me that he's in charge at the end of the day, because he still will operate a business and he can get up and go to work the next day after pretending to be a slave. Because black people couldn't pretend to be slaves. Our ancestors were slaves by force, by Caucasian people. So this is never funny. This should never be allowed. And I hope you get the message.